Welcome to the Private Practice Startup, where we inspire you from startup to mastery. We chat with entrepreneurs, experts in the mental health and business arenas, and successful private practitioners to give you the tools needed to make your dream practice a reality. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, and so much more. Here are your hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
Hey, Startup Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Katie Lemieux.
Hey, everybody. It's Dr. Kate Campbell. You're keeping me on my toes.
You knew what was coming.
I was ready this time.
So we are on our fourth recording of the day, and we're going to keep a high energy all the way. How about that? Is that good? All
yeah.
Right, good.
I mean, we ate a little while ago, so I feel totally re-energized, and I'm like kind of slap happy, silly. I don't know.
That's usually what happens on the fourth recording, right?
I know. We're probably a lot more fun to listen to when we get to this silly stage. At least I hope so anyways.
Yeah. So last week's show, we actually spoke with Yolanda and Shaman Harper of Harper Therapy over in Tampa. And so they are a married couple. Yolanda is...
Shaman.
Did I say it wrong?
Shaman. Like I'm shaming you. Like shame on you. Shaman.
No, none of that.
Shaman. They were awesome.
They were awesome. Yes, and they talked about, holy cow, I'm on a TED Talk. So they shared about their journey where Shaman did a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and Yolanda was the presenter and speaker. So you'll want to join us for that and see how you too can figure out how to get on a TED Talk.
You know, it's so interesting with our topics today because before we talked about the TED Talk, we had overcoming imposter syndrome, right? And then we're about to dive into Hypnotize Me. And so I know if I was going to do a TED Talk, I would definitely need some like hypnotizing and probably imposter syndrome fixing before I would put myself on that platform. Just saying. So yeah, today we have Elizabeth Bonet, and she is the owner of a hypnotherapy practice, and she also has her own podcast, Hypnotize Me. Yes. I kind of jumped right in. Keep going.
Yeah, you did. No, that's okay. We just
welcome,
right off each other.
I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. And Elizabeth actually is literally in the word literally in our backyard, right?
Yes,
so we were going to get
Yes.
together, but Kate and I are not at the office today and we're camping out at her house. So we decided to do it on Zoom, which we always do, but it would have been great to get together. But that's okay. We'll take the second best, which is Zoom. So yes, so like Kate said, we are going to be talking about how to build a hypnotherapy business. And Elizabeth is going to share her journey with you guys and us. And so we're really excited about that. And if you are a first-time listener, awesome. Rolling out the red carpet for you. You are officially part of Startup Nation family, and we want to welcome you here. And we also have a special gift for you, and that is our A to Z cheat sheet, the essentials for building and growing your dream practice, where you'll also get 5 days of practice building emails, information, and resources. So the key to that is read the emails, do the work, apply, repeat. Super simple. And of course, we're here to help you along the way. Keep diving into the podcasts and applying that knowledge as well. And if you're a loyal listener, hey, Startup Nation family, welcome back. It is great to have you. So before we get started, we're going to take a quick break from our sponsor.
Yes, we are so grateful for Therapy Note being our sponsor for today's episode. And if you guys haven't heard our episode with Brad Pliner, it was episode 54. We really did a deep dive into Therapy Notes and talked about all of their whole platform and what it offers, because it really does provide a wonderful system and place for therapists to be so organized with managing their notes and submitting insurance claims and scheduling. They also have a great email and phone support. So if you ever have any tech issues, tech can be challenging. So they're always right there to help you out. So it's a wonderful platform, and we highly recommend them. Make sure you click the link in our show notes page, and you'll be able to get 2 months for free. So that is a great opportunity for you to get all organized and systemized before you really grow your dream practice. Or if you're already in you're already in a thriving private practice, it's never too late to transition and make that change and get started. Make sure to use the code PPS, as in the Private Practice Startup, and click the specific link in our show notes page, and you'll be able to take advantage of that. So thank you to Therapy Notes.
So we're turning over to you, Elizabeth, to understand how to build a hypnotherapy practice.
So how did you get into offering hypnotherapy in your private practice?
Well, I was always before I start, I want to say that's a great offer, 2 months free for your sponsor. I just want to tell listeners that.
Yeah.
Usually it's like 1 month free. So that's like double. So anyway, use their code if you can. Okay. How did I get into a hypnotherapy practice? Well, I had always been fascinated by hypnosis. I had taught yoga for, well, by this point, it's been like 18 years or so. And it was a true love of mine. And at the end, you do relaxation. I often did guided meditations. And so it's very similar to hypnosis. But then...
I'm already getting relaxed.
I know.
Right? Here, I'll try to put more energy so I don't put everybody like in a hypnotic trance, right? So...
a hypnotic trance. You never know.
Yeah, totally. So then what happened is I stumbled across like hypnosis files and started downloading them for myself. Actually, I listen to a hypnosis file when I have to do public speaking. It's not my own, but it totally helped. And then I downloaded one for my daughter who was scared of heights at the time. She was little and she wasn't going up on playground equipment or anything like that. And I was like, what do I do here? That really helped her. And eventually I decided to become trained myself because I just felt like it was so helpful. And then once I became trained, I fell in love with it. It was just a perfect fit for me.
That's awesome. This is something that probably Startup Nation doesn't know, but I took the 50 hours of certification in hypnosis training, maybe in like 2007, like a really long time ago. And it's one of those things, if you don't practice it, if you don't stay on top of that skill, you kind of lose it. And so I don't actually use hypnosis in my practice, and I always refer referrals out, and which is why I'm so happy to be connected to you so I can send those referrals your way. But I so believe in hypnosis, and I'm just fascinated by it. It's something that's so interesting and intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm. So, it is really fascinating. And I've heard that from other people. My past business partner actually had training in hypnosis, but never used it. And I think it's a fit for some people. For some therapists, you immediately say, oh, yes, this is me. I'm going to start using it, all of that. And then for other people, it's not. In my case, I had a mentor that I found very early on. And I think that really helped because then I could call him and be like, what do I do here? Or this case is coming in. Should I take it? Should I refer it to you? And that really helped me build my skills quickly.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about your journey in private practice.
Yes, my journey in private practice. I got trained in psychology, earned my PhD in clinical psych, and then left the field for about 10 years. I really just got burned out. And I had tried, right after I graduated, I had tried private practice working in someone else's. And I still felt burned out. And this was a huge crisis in I wasn't married at the time, but soon to be, my relationship. He was like, how could you have earned a PhD and leave this all behind? But I was like, I just can't do it. So I actually left for 10 years. And then when I came back 10 years later. What
did you do in the meantime?
Lots of stuff. Raised kids, went into a tech career. So I went into project management. I had always worked in the computer lab in graduate school, running like statistics and then programming very early on when the internet started, like 1995. When the internet started, I started building websites. So I got a job actually at a website company building websites.
Interesting. I'm glad I asked.
I know. It happened to be owned by two PhDs themselves. And so they didn't care that I didn't have any formal training in it. They were like, well, we know that you have perseverance and you can finish something. That's really all we need to know. And that you're intelligent. So we'll teach you the rest.
That you have those tech skills, because in private practice, tech skills come in handy big time.
Mm-hmm. They do. Yes. So I did that for a couple of years before I had babies and stayed home to raise them. And then I also developed a prenatal yoga company in Broward County, Yogafairy, and then sold that in 2016, about 2 years ago, I sold that company. But for many, many years, that's all I did. So I taught prenatal yoga, I stayed home with my kids, and then eventually I saw a divorce coming, and I thought, I'm going to have to support myself some other way than yoga. Well, it turns out yoga supported me just fine, but I did go back into private practice at that point. So I went into a group practice and started seeing people and figuring out how to do this, how to get clients, how to get them to me. Yeah.
Gotcha. And was that practice, were there other like hypnosis trained therapists, or everyone had their specialty?
No, I wasn't actually doing hypnosis at that point. I was a prenatal and postpartum depression anxiety specialist because I had struggled with that myself and had gotten specialized training in it. So that was really my specialty at the time. And it had, I don't know how many therapists. It was a big practice, probably 15 or something that would move in and out. Mm-hmm. And so I was with that one for about a year or so, and then moved to a different group practice that was a little bit closer to my house, and stayed in that one for probably a year and a half, 2 years, before I opened my own with my past business partner.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I didn't get trained in hypnosis until about 4 or 5 years ago. So I was about 5 years in before I decided I will take the training, because it is significant. Like Kate said, you have to, in Florida, you have to get 50 hours. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, all right, this is for the long haul. Like, this is going to take me a year and a half or so, but I'm committed to doing it.
Yeah. And then how much of your practice is actually made up of hypnosis work versus more traditional psychotherapy?
At this point, it's about 75% is hypnosis.
What have you found to be really helpful in, I guess, marketing that specific niche of private practice?
When I was willing to make the leap to call myself a specialist, I think that's when it turned for me, where it became more of a majority in my practice versus a minority in my practice. So some of that was confidence in my own skills and feeling like I could do that and I could call myself a specialist. And some of it was honestly just great support from my mentor, who was like, you've got to call yourself a specialist. Like, you were doing this all the time. You love it. You have extensive training in it. So not just the 50 hours. I get trained twice a year. I do workshops in it. And he's like, you are a specialist in this. I said, okay, I'll make the leap. And I knew from my marketing background from the yoga company that you have to niche. That's how you get clients. The fear is always that if I niche, I won't get clients, right? That's always the fear. But I knew from all of that marketing experience that I had that the more I niche, the better. So I was like, okay, I will niche in my private practice. I'll make this leap psychologically. And that's what really, when hypnosis clients started to come in, as well as people would find me on the internet. My SEO has always been really, really good, partly because of my tech background. And also other therapists would start referring to me. So it's not even therapists I knew. What I would hear from clients, I still hear this from clients, is that their therapist would Google hypnosis and I would pop up and they'd say, well, why don't you try this person? So they're coming in several different ways.
And I mean, I love that you talked all about niche and all that stuff. And I think that's important in calling yourself a specialist. So I just want to say, listen up, Startup Nation. If you're having difficulty calling yourself a specialist, go back to episode 107, hang out with the imposter syndrome, listen to that one. But that is really important. And, one of the feelings, so Kate and I both specialize in couples. And, when you specialize in something and you're passionate about it, all these little intricacies and information that the general population and or other therapists don't have. And even the way that you speak to clients on the phone, like I get so many of those like, oh my gosh, you get it. Like I called other therapists or I work with other therapists, but I know you get it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's really essential, right? Because when you are passionate about that and the way that you speak is, clients sometimes don't even know what they need exactly. But as you start to validate and reflect and summarize what they've said and share a little bit about what you do, like it becomes this match. So I also love how other therapists were finding you because they needed to refer and they didn't know who. So that's also a very cool way. What else have you done to market your practice?
Oh, it's more like, what have I not done? Okay. So, I mean, seriously. Yes.
So let's start with what didn't work and what worked.
Well, I think almost everything works. Like really, it's just more what you want to focus on is how I see it. So at one point, I actually had an SEO product called SEO in 30 minutes. I could teach anyone to do SEO in 30 minutes was this whole thing. And I I still can. It's really easy. But it's like, all right, your SEO consists of this, this, and this, right? You've got a blog, you've got to do this. And then that changes as technology changes. So 10 years ago, Twitter, Instagram, or, Facebook, I think Facebook was just coming on the scene or something. I mean, nobody needed to use that. But as the technology evolves, as different things come up, you evolve with it. So SEO then becomes, all right, you have a social media presence here. So you are on Twitter, or you are on Instagram, or you are on Facebook, and all of those different things come together to add a piece. You are on YouTube. You do have a podcast. The podcast for me was a huge leap because I knew it would be such a huge investment of time and technology. And I considered it for about a year before I found the Healthcasters course, which is Melvin Varghese' course. And that I finally clicked the button, signed up, was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And that laid out the technology to me in a way I could understand so that I could really make that leap. Mm-hmm. So that one was a huge piece. What didn't work, actually, Instagram doesn't really work that well for me. I don't know if it's the audience or it's too vague. I love Instagram to look at videos of guinea pigs with my daughter, but in terms of my private practice, not one person lists Instagram as the referral source. And I track all my referral sources. So that one didn't work. Twitter was here and there. But again, I'm not a big Twitter user. So I think for someone else, it could work really well. You think it has to fit you is really what I believe. So, and there's also this effect that I think even if you track referral sources, the people are going to check you out on different channels. So they may list Google as a referral source, but really, what they did is they went and looked at your Twitter, and then they checked you out on Facebook, and then they spent some time on your website, and that's all comes together to lend you credibility and make sure that they know that you truly are an ethical professional. You love doing this and you know what you're doing and you've been trained in it. And it gives them all of that feedback that they need to make that decision.
Yeah, I can hear you've done a really good job of positioning yourself in a place where you're really visible. You're really visible in the community, you're really visible online, and you have that tech background, which is awesome for a clinician to have in private practice because you really know what efforts to make. And then once you had that belief in yourself that, okay, I am specialized enough, I have enough training and background and experience that I can really call myself an expert and position myself and put myself out there. Once you had that belief in yourself, that really has helped other people to believe in you as well. And really, you've attracted so many more clients. So that's been a really, really effective thing for you.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I definitely get referrals from professionals as well, like doctors and other therapists that I've known over the years. So I think one thing that's really important to know about marketing is that it has to be consistent. So many people do one or two things and then they sort of disappear. And I found over the years through particularly running my yoga company was that I continue to show up. I continue to send thank you notes. I continue to say I'm grateful for your referrals every Thanksgiving. I continue to do the pieces that just keep you as okay, this professional still exists. Particularly, I know this varies obviously around the country and around the world. South Florida is a very transient area. People will move in, professionals, be here for 5 years and then decide they don't like it and they leave. So if you're in a transient area, I think it's even more important that nope, still here 10 years later, still sending you stuff, still exists. And then that person eventually sends you a referral.
Yeah, and you're really talking about building the relationship and the touch points. And sometimes, sometimes there's people that I refer to and then they just go off my mind radar, right? And then if something comes in or a blog or someone mentions their name, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I do know a therapist that does X, Y, and Z, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
That's really important. So I love that you talk about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know networking for a lot of people is important. And I sort of call it virtual networking for myself. I'm more of an introvert. I'm not exactly the person who loves to step into a mixer. Although, my children will disagree with you. They could see me as an extrovert. I have no idea why. They're like, you can talk to anyone. I'm like, true, but do I want to? Right? But that's a piece for people. What I say in terms of virtual networking is, hey, you could do that from your home. That came by necessity. When my kids were little, I could not show up at a doctor's office to market my company with like, a baby on this hip and the other one in the stroller. So I was like, all right, market from your mat. Just if you're a true introvert and you don't want to show, you don't have to. You can send out postcards. You can send out emails. You can do blogs. You can, send out thank you cards or gift certificates or, whatever that is. And they get to know you through that over time.
Mm-hmm. Really making it work for you. I like that aspect. And, even as you talk about like the different like social media and things like that, I too felt in the beginning I had to do everything right. And I'm really only on Facebook and sometimes I'm barely on that. Like I almost like batch my time on Facebook, like, or I'm going to spend an hour and a half. Just go through it. But yeah, it's definitely important. But I think the essence is building that relationship, staying consistent. Now, do you even like further niche down in a specific issue or issues that you work with through hypnosis?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I mean, that's been part of my journey is to really consider even doing further specialization, because there's people who specialize in like medical hypnosis just for like surgery and that type of thing. Yeah, it's really cool. And then for me, it's more inner child type of work, core healing core beliefs. I really love doing that work and changing some of those messages that people got in childhood. It was really impactful in my own life. So I felt really called to do that afterwards, to offer that to other people. And just changing those. It's going deeper than, let's say, like a cognitive behavior therapist could get there over time. But I feel like the hypnosis gets there a little faster because it really goes into the subconscious beliefs, and it's very emotional for people, and that helps change those deep patterns over time. So I would call that part of my specialty in hypnosis.
And what do you like when people call you? What are they most calling you about?
It really just varies. I wish I could tell you. Right? But so I'm going to get a little spiritual here. I really feel like people find me when they need to. Sure. I do. Because I'm also a specialist in borderlines. I love working with borderlines. A lot of therapists don't, but I absolutely love it. And I don't advertise that much, but they find me somehow. So we'll be working together, and it's like, there was a couple I was working with, and it became apparent that he was a borderline, and his wife said, we need a specialist in BPD. And I was like, well, you happen to be sitting in front of one, like who knows why, but somehow they find me. It happens like that. So sometimes they'll come in for one issue and then it'll transform into another. That often happens. So it really is the gamut. Sometimes it's ringing in the ears, shy bladder, it's something more medical, preparing for birth. And then other times it's specifically for, I am miserable. I feel like I'm living a very unhappy life. So I want to work on these core beliefs. And I heard either a podcast I did about it or somebody told me about this technique. And I want to come in and do some work on that level. And it's pretty efficient and pretty quick. You're talking, depending on what's going on, a couple of months, sometimes much less. So sometimes it's like 3 intensive weekends or 2 intensive weekends. So people will come in for that as well. I have people come in from out of town and do intensive work and then go back to their regular lives.
Yeah, so that's a great USP.
Yeah, very interesting. You've really niched down even further and just created different programs and services to be able to best meet the needs of your clients. And I'm curious about how long are the hypnotherapy sessions? Does it just depend on what the need is, or how do you determine that?
It does. So I have a program that's for migraines. It's a 6-session for migraines. It reduces the intensity, the frequency, and the use of medication. So those are 30 to 45-minute sessions. Mm-hmm. That's it. The IBS program, irritable bowel syndrome, it's 7 sessions every other week. So it's like 14 weeks, but it's 7 sessions. But those are pretty fast. We check in, we do the hypnosis. They're out in 45 minutes, let's say. When you talk about the deeper personality work, deeper changing those core beliefs kind of work, those are generally hour and a half. Sometimes we'll do a 2 or 3 hour session for those. So it depends on the level of the work.
One of the things, like as you're talking about this, one of the things I love, and which is also part of marketing, is people buy steps and systems. When they can understand it and it's an open and closed process, they're more apt to buy. So a lot of the work that we've learned, especially in marketing, talking about psychology, is that people are just trying to survive, and that's a Donald Miller thing, right? And they want to know the simplest form and how do I get started? How much is it going to cost? What are the steps, and how do we do this? And so I love that you explain it that way. And sometimes we hesitate, on the phone with a potential client or something like that, saying, well, it's going to be 12 sessions, or your best bet is if you do it this way for 3 months, right? And that is important, actually. And that actually still holds you as the position of the specialist and the expert. Like, I'm telling you how you're going to get the best benefit. And then I ask them, what is it that you're wanting to receive? I want the maximum, right? So that's just another little tidbit as I hear, because my mind is always attuned to marketing and things like that. But, that's interesting. And I think you definitely done so much in the marketing aspect, and really highlighting different areas and utilizing different platforms, but also just like the way that you talk about it, the niche and all that stuff. So it's
definitely
an awesome job.
A lot of my, packages, quote unquote, they're based on research. So the IBS has been researched for 30 years. And, I had someone who wanted to do weekly because they wanted to speed it up. And I was like, I won't do that. The research is that it's every other week, and that's how it's most effective. And I've tried that in the past, and I don't want to set you up for failure. Why would I do that? So it's really approaching it that way too. The research says, all right, 6 sessions is probably the best for migraines. That's what we base it on. We don't just shot in the dark here. So it's that type of work. The core healing work, which is the deeper core beliefs work. I have a PDF that I send them. I think it's about 7 to 10 pages long or something, but it explains it absolutely. I think people need information. What I always want to prevent is someone coming back and saying, well, you didn't say this, you didn't say it would cost this much, or you didn't say, and then it's no. Look, I can't guarantee anything, really. But here is, here's the package. I lay it out and say, these are the 6 sessions and this is how much it costs. Or for the core healing, it's all right, we do this for an hour and a half, and there's this assessment, and then we do a 2-hour session, and then we do a follow-up session. It is all laid out with the cost so that there's no questions later about it.
So they know what to expect.
And that's really about building a good business relationship as well, being really clear.
Yes. And I think we face that it's a unique situation as therapists. And I'm imagining you've had the same experience. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about it. But you're dealing with people who generally, when they're coming in, they're not feeling great, right? A lot of people are in crisis. So I always want things written for them so they go back and look at it, because you can sit and talk to someone and you're feeling stable yourself, hopefully, right? And so you don't realize they're not processing everything that you're saying. So even something as simple as your cancellation policy that I have online, and then I have it written that they sign in person, and then 2 weeks later they'd be like, well, I didn't know. And it's I understand that. That's why I reviewed it with you in person. That's why I have your signature. But I understand you're in crisis when you came in. So let's look at it again. But it's all laid out clearly. And from a business perspective, I think that's helped me over time to feel no, I did my due diligence on my side. I cannot account for everyone coming in. We deal with so many different types of people that I can't account for all of that. But, let me make sure that I'm doing what's ethical and right on my end of the business.
And that really contributes to the know, like, and trust factor. Yeah, I'm enjoying a lot about what you're saying and the different strategies that you found that really work. And I was also curious to ask a little bit more about the podcast. How helpful has it been to be producing this free, valuable content based on your Hypnotize Me podcast show?
It's been an incredible experience. I know you two feel the same way, that, originally I did it to educate about hypnosis, but also as a way to bring referrals in. And it has delivered far more than that, far more.
I'm sure.
Like, yeah, I mean, I regularly get referrals from it. I would say 1 to 2 a month. And
awesome.
yeah, it varies, but generally that's what it is. But more than that, it has caused me to have to focus on the research and learning more and being prepared. And I get to talk to all kinds of people about hypnosis, which I absolutely love, right? And then on top of that, I get to talk to, it's opened this whole world of podcasters where it's like, okay, it's not just interviewing people for my podcast. I get to be interviewed for other people's podcasts and talk to them about, let's say, the business of therapy or parenting or, mindfulness, like all of these different people that it's opened up. So it's really been an incredible experience. I really love it.
Awesome. What do you want to make sure our listeners take away from your message today?
Oh, it's a great question. Let me pause here for a moment. Let's think. I would say that if you really love what you're doing, and don't be scared to niche, don't be scared to jump in, get more training, call yourself a specialist, and then convey that confidence to other people. I think that is inner work that has to happen, but the outer piece of that is you get so many results, like you get to help so many people. So I see it also as service. Like, how can I be of service to people? Well, they have to know that I do this and I love this for me to even be able to serve them and help them grow and get better and function better in their lives. So I would approach it from that standpoint. That's the takeaway. Like, approach it from how can you best be of service of people and get your message across so that you can do that.
Nice. And I know that you have a free hypnosis giveaway to reduce fear and anxiety, and we will put the link to that on our show notes page, so you guys can grab that on our show notes page. Because the other part is, we're helpers and healers, and so it's important to do our own work. I know the last personal stuff I've done, I actually did a whole bunch of hypnotherapy, and we definitely went deep and did past life regressions and all these great things as well. And that was interesting to be on that journey. So, so definitely connect with Elizabeth. And we just appreciated having you on the podcast today, talking specifically about, marketing a practice, but obviously with the niche and target market of working with hypnosis clients. So I hope you guys join us next week, because we'll continue the marketing conversation with Dr. Amber Lyda, talking about the 5 steps to a full private pay online practice. And she's going to be specifically talking about marketing and online practice. I know we've done quite a few online therapy podcasts, but this is specific about marketing, so you want to join us for that. So don't forget to check out the tips, resources, and giveaways from today's podcast. That will be on the show notes page. And as always, we'd love for you to share this with your fellow colleagues or clients. Maybe you have a colleague, not clients, fellow colleagues, not clients, fellow colleagues, wrong podcast. Share this with your colleagues and friends is what I wanted to say. But maybe you're a practice builder, so maybe it's your client. Anyway, I digress. So share this podcast, especially if you have a colleague or friend maybe looking to build a hypnotherapy practice. Get in touch with Elizabeth. She's a resource of a wealth of information and knowledge. Check out our podcast too. Remember, it's called Hypnotize Me. So as always, have an awesome and inspired day, Startup Nation. We look forward to continuing to inspire you from startup to mastery. And we'll see you later.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.